Hi everyone, my name is Dominic and welcome to our training program. This program is going to be of 6 sessions and each session will be taking 2 hours duration. So I'm targeting architectural professionals, students or beginners who are trying to transition from CAD or other programs or needing formal ArchiCAD grounding. The objective is to equip you with the essential skills to confidently model, document and present architectural projects in ArchiCAD. Like I said, it's going to be of 6 sessions. This video is session 1, where we'll be looking at the introduction and workspace fundamentals. It's going to be themed around getting comfortable in ArchiCAD. The outcome is to understand ArchiCAD environment, tool sets, and basic project setup. The topics that we're going to cover is going to be the overview of ArchiCAD and BIM principles. We're going to look at the ArchiCAD interface navigation and project settings and template usage, not forgetting the story settings and project structure. We're going to also look at the basic selection techniques and element controls. Lastly, is going to be introduction to key modeling tools such as wall, beam, columns, and so forth. At the end of the session, we're going to do an exercise to model a simple one-room structure using walls, slabs, openings, and other tools while using accurate dimensions. With that being said, let's get started. But before we start, I would like you to subscribe and hit that notification button to be notified for session 2 of this training program. Buckle up and let's get started. Well, what is BIM and what is ArchiCAD? Let's look at the difference between CAD and BIM. Basically, the CAD and BIM are both design technologies used in architecture, engineering, and construction, but they differ in their scope and purpose. CAD, which represent or stand for computer-aided design, focuses on creating a detailed 2D and 3D drawings and models as well, while BIM or building information modeling is a process that utilizes a digital or virtual representation of a physical asset to manage the entire building life cycle from design to operation. If you look at the work environment and ArchiCAD interface, it has 4 sections. The top part or the top section is the drop-down menus and your info box. So if you look at the drop-down menus, we've got file, where you can save as your project and access your libraries and objects. We have edit, design document, and so forth. The live sync here is an add-on that comes with that you can download from the Graphisoft website or Lumion website. This is basically to link your project or your virtual model with the Lumion rendering application, just to have a live sync where while you design the site, you can also visualize at the same time. It's a very interesting technology to incorporate in your workflow also. Okay, from the left side of the interface is the tool palettes, where you have your design tool palettes, the viewpoints, and documents. It's been divided into 3 parts. The design is where you find or is where all the 3D tools are located, such as wall tool, slab, columns, and so forth. Under the viewpoint is basically all the views or the viewpoints of the callouts of your different views of your project, your sections, elevations, details, camera, and so forth. Then from the document section is the 2D tools, such as your dimensioning, different types of dimensioning. You have angle, radial, and levels dimensioning as well. You have your orthodox line tool that is across all the CAD platforms. Then we have your circle, your polyline, and interestingly, the spline tool. This is an underrated tool in ArchiCAD, I'm telling you. Here in ArchiCAD, in each tool, you will have this arrow where you can, just hover your cursor there, and then it will give you this window on how the tool functions. This is only available in the latest version, which is ArchiCAD 28. The lower version doesn't have this feature. Yes, and then that's basically the tool box. Let me collapse everything. And then from the bottom of your interface is the view properties such as scale, layer combination. We have fitting window there, and pen sets and so forth. So here, bear in mind the decision that you are taking here. For example, if we change this to 1:2000 scale, it will shrink everything accordingly. And be in mind, or be aware, that this is just temporary, because you have to go to each view settings in order for you to make a permanent decision or action based on your scales. So if you revert back to your views, for example, on ground, so if you're working on the view map, right, so this is going to revert back to default settings. So and then on the right side of your interface, this is your project browser. They call it project navigator, where all your views are being structured. This is basically a hierarchy of all the views. So it's divided into into 4 parts, sorry. We have the project map, the view map, layout book, and publisher sets. These 2, project map and view maps, they are more or less the same. So we need to understand how they function. So under the project map, this is a list of all the views systematically structured on a tree structure. So there's really nothing you can change here. What you do here, it captures your actions on your workspace. For example, if you're to now go to the viewpoint and add a section, let me draw a section here like that. The section will be now captured or listed under sections. If I am going to introduce another elevation, for example, let's go to elevation tool, then draw another elevation for whatever reason. Here, the elevation will be captured here. While on the view map section, it's a bit different, but it has the same hierarchy. But here, what you can do is to customize and save, different views, because at the end of the day, this one view can represent multiple drawings. For example, if you have a ground floor drawing, that ground floor can be either a ceiling plan, can be either a plumbing plan, can be electrical layout, it can be a lot of drawings depending on the project complexity. So that's basically where you are capturing such information. For example, we have the ceiling plans here. This levels is just basically the same ground floor from the view map. Sorry about that. From the view map, we see it's 0 ground floor. If you go here under ceiling, again, it's 0 ground floor. What is the catch here? By the use of the view settings, we can, dictate how the view performs, and basically is the visibility of elements, right? So from the project map, whatever you draw, whatever you place, whatever you design is going to be listed or captured in the workspace. But then now, if you want to filter and separate elements accordingly, for example, if you have an equipment and furniture layout. You have electrical and ceiling layout. These are two different drawings that needs to be separated. You can't show your, for example, your equipments and furniture on ceiling, right? Yes. Now that's where the introduction of layer combinations comes into play. So all these views, they use layer combination feature to control the visibility of elements within your work environment. So that is the catch. So if you select or activate one of the views here, and then you go to settings, underneath here at the bottom, we have now the view settings window, where it has all the properties or all the parameters you can see. If you look at basically what we have here, mostly are being listed here on the bottom section of your interface, like I mentioned earlier. But then the difference is what you do here is going to be captured permanently and stored within your views, unlike actions that are made on the bottom of your interface. Okay, you should need to understand that. So you see under general, basically from the identification, we have the the naming and IDs of your view. Currently is the ground floor, and it's been generated from the project map, right? You can customize this by clicking on this arrow and customize, but then currently it's been generated from the project map. Remember, on the project map, everything is systematical, so you can't change, you can't do it, because it's the structure of how you view your model or your project model. And then we have the general section where you have your layer combination. Layer combination is the first on the list because it controls everything in terms of the elements, how they are being visible or how they are being controlled within each element. So here, this view under ceiling plans, it says the layer combination is the plan details. So if you click on here, you see you have a bunch of layer combinations that comes with a default ArchiCAD. You can customize this and have your own set of your layer combination. And then we have scale. You can change the scale or set a scale to whatever. We have your pen sets. Then we have let's go down here under the 2D and 3D documents. This is very, very important because it determines your units, your dimension units within that view. This is interesting. ArchiCAD each view can have a different units format. For whatever reason, I don't know what will be the purpose, but you can, set or key each view a unit measurements. So we have different sets there. We have plane meter, plane millimeter, US, and also you can set your own standards as well. And then from the top section, we also have tools there. We have tools such as trace and reference, where you can trace or reference another view from your current view. We have other tools such as measure, where you can just measure from point A to point B like that. And we have groups. We have the 3D cutaway, where you can cut your project model in different cutting planes, horizontally or vertically, or even at an angle. We have the trim tool here to trim elements such as wall lines and beams. We have split, in case if you want to split an element into two parts. We have adjust, where you can adjust elements from point A to point B. Intersect, fillet or chamfer, then drag or move. In ArchiCAD, we don't move, we drag. So that's basically that. And we have different types of drags there. We have drag a copy, drag multiple copies, and mirror also, they are under drag. Okay. For the mouse control, orbit, zoom, and pan, the left side of your mouse is to select, and the right side of your mouse is to bring in the menus by just right clicking like this. You can have your paste, trace, and other tools at your disposal. And then we have the wheel where you can zoom out and zoom in like so. Then we have the pen where you can press and hold your mouse wheel like that. Also, in conjunction with this one, where you can fit in a window. For example, I can fit all elements within this window. I can change the scale of the zoom as well. I can use manually increase the zooming or decrease like that. In case you've messed up your interface and you want to reset it to the default settings, you go to options, work environment, apply profile, then you can reset it to architectural professional. In case you've brought a lot of tools, for example, if you want to bring the tool palettes of a different set of tools, you can go to window, then okay, let me do this. Let's go to window, palettes, and for example, we want to bring in the attributes. No, let's bring in, let me go back, or even the toolbars. Let me bring the 3D visualization like this. So if maybe you have that and you want to go back and reset your to options and reset, you go back to options and reset your profile, and everything will disappear and give you the default tool sets. That's how you do it. So you have your tool settings, and for example, if you are clicking or activate one of the tools here, maybe a wall, under the top section of your interface, it will give you this box. This box has sets of parameters for each element or for each tool you've selected or if you activated. So currently here we have the parameters of wall tool. As you can see, you have its layer there, geometry method, how you would want to place it, the reference line location within your wall, then the structure that determines the composites or materials, then the floor plan and section where you getting the graphically display parameters. You have the stories, because each element has to be linked with a story. That's the key thing in ArchiCAD. Make sure every element you are placing here is been linked to a relevant story. Then you can expand this window by clicking here on the tool settings or settings dialog. Your shortcut is Ctrl+T. If you click on it, it will give you all the parameters expanded from geometry and positioning, floor plan and section, model, where you can override the surfaces. You have structural analytical parameters, classification and properties, which is very, very integral for the BIM application or BIM workflow. So under the geometry position, we have the linkage of your element. For example, for the wall, because it has to be linked from the base or from the bottom and then the top. So currently here it's been linked to story 2 at the top, and then home story is story 1, right? You can easily change this by clicking on the arrow and key in or link it to a different levels. So yeah, basically that's all in settings dialog for each tool. The difference will be now the icon and the parameters you are getting will be displayed for that particular element, because they vary with the parameters. For example, if you click on the slab, it will give you the icon of a slab. Then if you look at the parameters, they're more or less the same but different. As you can see, we have slab edge angle. All these are slab parameters, so be away with that. So the difference, like I said, will be just the icon here and its parameters that has been displayed. So the program also has what you call the favorites. Each tool here has a favorite. So if you hover your cursor here, you'd see it gives you this arrow where you can click and get the presets of different columns. For example, different tool, we have a column style, generic column, and all the likes. So if you want to use this as a default, you can also create your custom presets for each elements as well. To start a new project in ArchiCAD, you go to File. Always we want to start from a new template or a project from a template. So we're gonna go to File, then New, and make sure under the New Project section or New Project window, choose the template. So here I have different versions of our MS BIM 2025 Pro template, which has been running for over the years, which has been running for years now. So we are on version 2025. So if you want to check the template, check the link on the description to download this template. We're gonna start with a default ArchiCAD template, which is ArchiCAD 28. So the TPL is the format for a template. So I'll advise you to save your own templates as well. Create your own templates for consistency in terms of the standards, because it carries the presets of your layer combination and layers, your view settings, your title blocks, all bunch of things, even your favorites, to boost your speed when delivering project in ArchiCAD. So all this information will be stored within the template, and it's always advisable to save it as a template and then avoid to reset most of the things in ArchiCAD. So I'm gonna go with the ArchiCAD 28 template and then create new. Then I'm gonna let's not save this one. Then the ArchiCAD will open a new file. All right, there we go. All right, from here I would like us to look at the attributes and the attributes management. So it's very, very important section of your ArchiCAD, because it's where I would say the project browser is the home of the project, and then the attributes is the heart of the project. So if you go to the options menu, and then we have this section, element attributes. We have all different attributes of ArchiCAD here. So basically, this is the makeup of elements in an ArchiCAD or in your project. For example, if you are creating a wall, the wall has to have a layer, the wall has to have a line representation, a pen and color, which is basically that will determine the weight of your pen or of your line, sorry. And then the fields that determines your hedge of your wall, the surface that determines the physical representation the visual representation and physical representation within your file. In 3D, we put the building materials of your wall, composites, profile, and so forth. This is very, very critical. So I would like us to start with the layers. Let's just look at the layers for now. If we click on layer, the shortcut is Control L, as you can see here has been listed. And the layers combination and layers settings window is divided into two parts. We have on the left the layer combinations, and then on the right the layers, the actual layers. This is different from other CAD programs because you will only have layers. Here the case is that the layer combinations is the one that controls the visibility of elements within your view. For example, we have ceiling plans here. Under ceiling plan, we should have a layer combination that represents and filters ceiling elements or ceiling layer elements here. I hope that makes sense. We have a plan structural. So if you click on the plan structural, this is basically a drawing for structural. It can be either ground or first floor, it doesn't matter. But if you click on it, you'd see it will, have elements that's supposed to show under this. We have your interior partitions, you have your structural bearing, which does make sense because we're dealing with a structural layout. So these elements should be or must be visible under the layer combination of plans structural, right? And then if you look at plans mechanical, exactly the same thing. We see now electrical, HVAC, plumbing layers are active here. So that's very, very critical for your views elements visibility. So that means under the plans of mechanical, these are the elements that will be showing. Okay, so we have 2D layers for your dimensioning, drafting, and all the likes. Then we have other elements. To create a layer combination, you go down below here and then hit on plus, then you can create a layer. For example, let's say ceiling. Okay, this will be for ceiling. And here what we want to have out, go to the top, then select everything. Let me select the first layer, then go down, scroll down, and shift hold, click the last layer. This will select all the layers, and I can switch off the layers on under the ceiling, right? Let's just do that. Let's switch all the layers off. Switch it off, then we have all the layers switched off under ceiling, and then I can now go one by one and identify layers that I want them to show here. For example, I want the structural bearing elements to show. What else again? And let me go to partition, and maybe the electrical position, electrical points also are important. Then we have ceiling, finished wall, ceiling as well. I'm gonna turn it on, and maybe a couple of 2D for annotation, if you want to place some annotation in your ceiling plan. Okay, from here I would hit OK. Then if you go here under the ceiling layouts, what we need to do, I'm gonna select all the elements. Let's select the title first, and then shift hold and click on the ground. That will select all the ceiling layouts. So I'm gonna go down below under the properties and click on the settings, and then change the layer combination to the newly created ceiling combination, and then hit OK. So basically, if you open this view under ceiling, it will give you the layer combination or the elements of ceiling. So most of the things will be active. You see now we don't have our elevation and section markers within this view because it's actively off on this view because of the layer combination. And then if you go here under the properties, it shows or indicates this is a ceiling layer combination, and the scale is 1:50, and the name is ceiling plans. All right, so that's how it works. All right, let's go back again to our element attributes, and let's now go for pens and colors. All right, so this is basically a default list of pens for this template, the ArchiCAD default template. So we have 9 sets of pens here. So what you need to understand here is the structure of the pens and colors. We have if we click on one, let's click on pen 1. So this is the color table, and then on the right here you have the weight, we have the color, and then the description, right? So, and then the number as well. So this is pen 1 on the color table. It will indicates here it's pen 1. So it reads like this: from 1 you go to the right horizontally, and then you just go like that. So pen 1, its weight is 0.13. You can change this, you can customize this if you want. And then the description is used for general, stuff. And unlike other specific colors or pens, like for example, if you here we have pen 7, which is 0.35 thick, and it has made for walls, curtain walls, and general. So we have also for beams, slabs, and so forth. So you have to understand, even if you are to adjust this to your office standard, make sure you respect the hierarchy and the color table. You don't just, for example, change this wall into a different, or change it out of context. Maybe you say, I want this to be 0.01 to be the lightest pen, and I'm gonna use it for objects or furniture, for example. ArchiCAD will automatically, because it's very important, ArchiCAD, it will always read this or interpret this color 7 only for walls and curtain walls general. Even if you make it thin, that means your elements, your walls are going to be affected if you change it to your pen state. Because if you say, for example, let's change this into 0.50, maybe you want your walls to be thicker. Okay, so 0.50, automatically it says this is now a custom. I can store this as a custom. For example, I can say this is 0, like we are at 9, let me say 10, then I would say ATP session, sorry, like that, and then store this. Okay, now we have our pen set stored and the list. If I click on the architectural one, so this reverts back to 0.35. So if you go to if you go back to this one, it will revert back to 0.50 as we've set it. This is important. Like I said, you need to change or customize the pens accordingly to the color table. You don't just change and then divert the purpose of that into something different, because it will always create challenges when you are now assigning pens to your views. For example, let me hit OK because we've created that. If you say your ground floor under ceiling, the pens should be, let's go to settings. the pens should be where do we change the pen set here? The pen set here, we say this is ATP session, and then what is this? Unlock structural bearing. So we need to unlock it, and then we place that. Let me fit in window. So this is the wall we've placed by using default presets. So it has a line and a fill. Currently the fill is not active because we are under ceiling. It uses a model view options that structural elements here are not supposed to show. So if you go to the floor plans ground, for example, it will have a different graphic representation. So you'd want to, unless if you want to create a specific pens for ceiling, that's where you can have your walls to be in a different format. So for example, ground floor is on architectural pen set, right? Architectural 100 pen set. You can just come here and check, right? And then if you go to ceiling, we have our newly created ATP ArchiCAD session. Both this interprets the color number accordingly to the color table. So like I'm saying, if you're changing that, make sure you understand this is structurally or systematically assigned to elements, and because you have to really away with that, because at the end of the day you don't want a situation whereby you change the pencils to a different views and then it gives you a different graphic feel because you didn't respect the hierarchy and the color table accordingly when creating your custom pens. Okay, let's go back to our elements attributes options, elements attributes, and then let's this time around look at the look and feel of elements both in 3D and in 2D, right? This is being controlled here under fields and surfaces. Okay, so if you open the surfaces, for example, you would have a list of different surfaces that comes with this template, the ArchiCAD default template. You can create new set of surfaces depending on your style, and then what you have here is the list of all the surfaces. Then this side is the parameter or the settings of each surface. On each surface, what is important is to understand both the texture and then the cover fill. The texture is on 3D, right? For example, because this is a color, it doesn't have a texture. It's a paint, it doesn't have a texture, right? And then under cover fill also, it doesn't have a cover fill. Currently it's on background where it doesn't really have a feel. Okay, so let's find something that has both a texture and a feel, like a brick. And then you can also see here on this part, we have, this is a representation of a feel or a hedge, and then this on the right is for the texture. Okay, so for example, this brick red, it has a feel and then a surface or a texture, right? This is the texture, and then this is the feel. Okay, so that's how it works. So if we go to, let's go to I'm gonna hit OK, and then let's go here under floor plans, and currently this wall, I'm gonna go to the top under the info box and access the structure of this wall. So we have different types of structures, either basic, composite. Composite is basically it's part of the attributes as well. It's a composition of materials to create an element. For example, we have two layers of a wall here. We have the core of the structure, or core structural of this wall. Then we have a finish, which is this layer that we see. So this is a combination or a composition of two layers, right? Of two layers of different materials. So if we go to 3D and let's fit in window, you would see your wall has two parts or two layers, right? This is the core of the core structural, the core of the wall, then the finish from the outside or whatever inside. So it's very, very important. So what we need to do here, I'm gonna change the structure to just a basic, just to have a solid wall like this. And I'm going to change the, let's go to 3D, right? Let's select this and then go to the settings dialog. We want to override the surfaces of our wall. So if you go down here under the model section, we can override the surfaces of this into, let's assign that a brick red surface, and then I'm gonna link or lock to have this applied on all surfaces of my brick. Then hit OK. This will be now assigned to this element, and then the surfaces fill or hatch is generated from the elevations and sections, not on the floor plan. The one for the floor plan is going to be the building material, okay, which attributes. So if you go back to the options element attributes, we have building materials. Okay, building materials is the same arrangement as your surfaces. You have two section of your window. On the left side is the list of the building materials you can think of that comes with this default template, and then this side on the right you have the structure and appearance, which is from the a cut section, either horizontal or vertical, right? And then you have the surfaces. You could see how this attributes are intertwined. We have surfaces here as well that are assigned. Then at the bottom there is classification and properties of this element, which is if you select the brick, it will give you a different set of properties here. You see here it says under the structure and appearance, the hatch is the common brick, and then the surface is the brick red, that surface we've been looking at. So like I'm saying, let me cancel this. Like I'm saying, the surface here that we've applied or overridden from our element is going to be generated or projected on the elevations. So if you go back here and then let's try open, let's try draw an elevation here. I'm gonna go to the viewpoint. Let's draw an elevation like that, then cancel the command by arrow tool, select this. You can right click and open with current view settings, or you can just go under the elevations, it's been listed here, then click on elevation 01. So currently it doesn't show the hatch because of the settings of this elevation. So if you right click on the elevation and then go to elevation settings, you can decide under the model appearance, you can decide, you can decide to show the surface cover fill. Let's activate that. If you click that, it will now be generated within this wall. Okay, but then you can decide to use let's go back to our wall settings and unoverride this, then hit OK. So what we are doing here, we want to use, because this brick red surface is being keyed in and it's been linked to a building material for a brick. So if I come here and then change the, if I go to the structure and then change this to a brick, let's search for a brick. If you're using the latest versions of ArchiCAD, it has this search bar where you can search in different parts of your ArchiCAD, which is very convenient. So if you assign this to a brick finish, a brick material, it will come both with the surface and then the hedge. So if you go again to the ground floor, it will represent that hedge we've seen in the building material. So basically, if I can select this and then go back to our options, elements, attributes, and then open the building materials, it will highlight the element that is being selected here on your project, and then gives you all these parameters. So like I'm saying, the hedge that we see here is the exact hedge we see here linked on the appearance. So this is the structure and appearance of the elements. So you could see also the pen set is 168, which is the one that is been activated there. The brick red is the surface, and if you can change this, if you change this to a different, maybe a stack bond, and then hit OK, that will be automatically update your model like so. So that's basically the attributes ArchiCAD, especially in terms of the building materials and the surfaces. It's a very interesting part of your model, because like I said, it's the heart of your project. So everything that you are creating, all these elements, all these tools, depends on that section of your ArchiCAD, which is basically your attributes. For clarity and precision or accuracy of your elements, so we use the composite. For example, if you go back again to elements, attributes, and then if we open composite, we have different, let me use you can either use a folder view or list view. So this is basically a list of all the composites of elements comes with this default template. So for walls, you'd see with an icon, this is for slab, this is for walls, both wall, slab, roof and shell. Let's go for the walls. Okay, this is different layers of materials that assemble that element. You can see you have a brick, you have an and a cavity, then insulation, a concrete block, then a finish, a plaster gypsum finish. So let's assign our wall this 215 block insulated. I'm gonna change the structure. Under the structure here, change it to composite. Then click on this list and find the insulated cavity block. Perfect. This is, you see, even the thickness changes of the wall because the sizes of this depends on how it's been set from the composites. So you can't change the thickness of this wall because of this. You can only change the thickness if you are using a basic structure, where you can just come here under the wall thickness and then maybe make it 250, for example. But once you've converted this into a composite, it changes because the composition has dimensions as well. So let's select it and then maybe right click and edit selected composite. To go back here under composite, you would see each layer or each skin here has a thickness, and then that amounts to 402 or 402 millimeters wall thickness. Okay, so if you go here, it will show here as well, but it will be grayed out, so you don't have access of it like that. Okay, so this is just for clarity. Like I said, to see all the layers, you can see them here. Then if you go to the floor plan, it's also been captured accordingly like that. Now let's look at the project structure and the story settings, which is a very critical component of your project, because like I said, the attributes are the heart. Here is the home of your project, so you can dissect it in different view parts. So you need to have a great or a good structure and project settings. So currently we have the story settings. We have one from 0 to 2 stories, right? So what we need to do, let's right click in one of the views here, then go to story settings. This path can be also, a shortcut for this is Control+7 to access the story settings, or you can go to document and is it document? Let's see, I haven't really used this one much. It should be under document. Okay. Yeah, story settings under design. Story settings, you can bring your story settings from your design, or just right clicking on one of the stories here, then go to story settings, or you just easily Control+7 in your keyboard to access your story settings. Here what we have the 3 buttons where you can insert above or below a story, or you can also delete a story. But let's look at the components of a story here. It has elevation and then height next to another story. So like I said, we have up to 3 stories of this projects. What I want us to do is to set a project structure for a single story residential project, right, where you will have your roof, you will have your ceiling, you have your wall plate, you will have your all these levels. So I'm gonna start by selecting one of the ground, or one of the, let me select the ground and then insert the story below this. I'll call it site. I'll name it site. Then it's going to drop by 200 or 300. Let's say 300, because from this will represent the level from the floor finish to the natural ground. Okay, floor finish to the natural ground. So this will be the floor plan, right? This will be the floor plan, and it will represent the floor finish. Side to represent natural ground level, and this will represent the window / door level. To represent from the window, we have ceiling level. I'm gonna insert another story above, that will be wall plate level, and insert another one top. This will be the roof, basically the apex of the building. Okay, now let's set the elevations of all this story, all these levels. So from floor plan, from floor finish to window level, it's going to be 2.1, right? And then from the window level to the ceiling, we'll have to, that space between the truss, I mean this, yeah, no, it's the window level to ceiling is going to be maybe 400. I'm gonna make it 400, and so the ceiling height will be 2.5, for example. Yes, it will be 2.5, and then from, yes, the ceiling height will be 2.5. Then we have the wall plate level, which is going to be, let's say, 3 meters. It should be 3 meters. Yes. So from the ceiling level to the wall plate, it's just 500. And then we have a headroom to, you know, put whatever mechanical elements within the ceiling. 500, I think, is fine. We can reduce it to maybe 2.9 to have a room of 400. Yes, 400 ceiling void is fine. Then the apex, from the wall plate to the apex, let's make it, this will be, it will determine, or it depends on the roof type. Remember, for in this case, I'm not going to change it. I can just make it 3 meters from, but the roof height, it can be 3 meters. Let's make it 2 meters, the roof height. Okay. So what did I do here? Okay, the ceiling level to the wall plate, no, this should be, it can be 2. Let's make it 3. Okay, so that we have, yes, it's 500 difference, but it's small. It's small. Let's make it if you want your height, this is the king post height, right? So let's make it 4. I'm gonna make it 4 so that it gives me 1.5 height. Yeah, 1.5 height for the king post, right? If I'm using hipped roof kind of design. Yeah, 1.5 to 2 meters. Let's set it 2 meters. Let's make it 2 meters. It's subject to change because once I've placed the roof, it can always be adjusted. It doesn't matter. So from the wall plate to, what did I do? I've changed the 200, right? So from the wall plate to the roof, it's 9 meters to the apex of the building. So I want this to be 5.5. Okay, so that the wall plate height is a meter to the apex, or maybe 6. So it can be 1.5. Yes, 1.5. So we have, let's confirm our, and then we need to also insert the level for the foundation below. Let's insert below. The depth of the foundation will be a meter. Yes, it's going to be a meter, but now we have 300. So from the floor finish is going to be 1.3 because we're including 300 for the the natural ground level. Okay, so we need to confirm again our levels. From here is 2.1 to the window level. From window level to ceiling is 400. From ceiling to wall plate should be 2.5, which gives us that 500 void, ceiling void. And then we have 4.5 from the ceiling to the wall plate. It should be 500 as well. this should be 500. Yes, this should be 500. And then from the wall plate to the apex is 1.5. Yes, I think everything makes sense. And again, if you want to, some of this, if you don't want them to show here on the story level, you can either uncheck them. Like for example, the window level, I don't want to see the window level here. And what else again? Wall plate level, we can leave it if you want. And then yeah, pretty much everything is fine. Let's hit OK to apply it. So this will be listed now under our stories, under our floor plan sections, even if on the stories here on the view map it's been listed. So how does this work? So if you select, maybe let's open one of the elevation. Let's open one of the elevation here. So this levels will be captured here. So this is our zero ground, then we have ceiling, and then we have wall plate, then the apex, right? So that's basically how you set your levels in ArchiCAD. And you can always go back and adjust your heights. For example, let's go back, right click on one of the stories like I said, or hit Control-7 as a shortcut key. Maybe you feel like let's zoom in. You feel like maybe the ceiling height, the ceiling void is too small for fitting your elements. You can change it to, maybe let's make it 700. Then hit OK. It will be automatically adjusted from your elements. And then again, if you want to dimension these levels, you go to the document, and then we have a dimension tool here, and then we're going to change this to, under construction method, change this to elevation dimension, so that you can select all the, if you hover your cursor above one of the elements, one of the levels, you could see your cursor changes to this Mercedes-Benz icon. Okay, so if you click on one, it will select all the levels like that, and right click, hit OK. Then with the hammer cursor, you can place your dimensions like that. In case this is not showing here, this is how you can dimension also the story levels. Okay, let's move on to the selection part of ArchiCAD. So I'm gonna go to the floor plan view, okay, and zoom in there to our wall. Okay, there are different types of selection in ArchiCAD. We have here, if you go here on the icon, this is the menu or the selection tools on the top right corner here. So the first part is the selection methods. We have partial selection, entire elements, direction dependent. So this is basically how it is. So the first one, like I said, is partial, where you have to, specify the first point and then drag diagonally to, cut the element like that, and then specify the second point. Once you've cut or affected the element, you can just select like that. Okay, and then we have another one for the entire element, right, whereby you have to enclose the element like that. So currently all these elements have been selected because I've enclosed, but if you want to select only the wall, you have to only enclose the wall. So the elevation marker is not enclosed, so it's not going to be selected like that. Okay, then the third one is the direction dependent, whereby if depends on the complexity of the project again. So if you're working on a huge, maybe shopping mall, so you'll have to deploy this kind of a strategy of selection, because maybe you want to select a specific portion of your drawing or if your elements. You use this because you can just let's say you can just tick and then okay. All right, so the direction works like this. I was confusing with the first one. So the direction works like this. I think if you've used AutoCAD, from the selection differ in terms of the direction, right? For example, if you click from here going all this side, it gives you the enclosing kind of a selection, which is the second one. And then if you coming from the right going to the left, it gives you the first method, which is direct selection, right? Whereby you need just to cut across one element, then it will be selected, or two elements it will be selected, like, or for the left to right, you have to enclose the element. So that's basically different types of selection. And then we have the quick selection. This is the tool. When it's active like this, it means you can just directly click on the element. Like, for example, click on this to select, click on the elevation marker to select. So it's called quick selection, whereby you just directly selecting the element like that. And then other selection tools will be my Q tool. My Q tool is to I can it has different types of my Qs. We have rotated, my Q, rectangle, and then polygonal. Polygonal, it means you have to click different points to my Q, right? And then the circle, the rectangle is to click is to draw a box. Then the last one is a rotated rectangle, whereby you have to specify the angle first and then my Q. So if I had to right click and then show the my Q in 3D, it is going to cut this element here by that angle. So this is the cut I've made on 3D. Okay, so that's basically the selection tools in ArchiCAD. So the arrow tool is to cancel the command. So mostly if you click or activate the tool, so you'd see your cursor changes to a plus sign. That means it's active. The command is active. So in order for you to, so you can't do another action while this command is active. So always, in order for you to cancel the command, either you hit escape in your keyboard like that, it will cancel, or you go to the arrow tool. Arrow tool is to deselect, like to cancel. And then the cursor, if you see it as an arrow like this, you know that there is nothing active. There is no command that is active. So you can either select things or whatever. But if it's a plus sign, that means it's active. Okay. Let's move on. I want to introduce you to the pet palette and how to move and stretch elements and so forth. Basically, editing elements is geometry. So let's activate or deselect or deactivate the command. And then if you select the element, for example, this wall, maybe I want to stretch the length or adjust the length, right? So I'm gonna like a line. We want to click on the point and then stretch the line. So if we click on this point to give you the pet palette, this is the pet palette I'm talking about, and it has series of commands there. We have the stretch, we have move, which is drag, right? And then we have rotate, mirror, elevate, and multiply. So these two sets differs mostly in how you select elements, and then also by tools or by element. So for example, if it's a slab, it will give you a slightly different tools for editing a slab. If it's a beam, also does the same. And if it's, you know, other tools also does that. So I just want you to understand that it will give you, you know, a variety of tools depending on the element that is being selected in your file or in your model. So let's now, I want to stretch this. So let's start again. Let's stretch this to that. Oh, sorry, I don't know why. Stretch that. I'm gonna stretch this like that, and then you see we have this guide, a distance guide or a tracker. It's very, very important because it gives you a range of your stretching. You can also key in value of the distance of or the length of your column, and then hit enter, so it will stretch accordingly to that. So if you go to measure tool, you can measure the length, like that is now 5 meters. So if you go back again and then you want to stretch this and make this 6 meters, you just do that. So if you want to move it, you can click one of the points and then use drag like that, or we can go back and rotate it by clicking the rotation point or rotation center. Then we either choose the rotation radius, then we can rotate by an angle. So you can key in an angle of rotation if you want, or you do it just by the click on the screen like so. Okay, so I'm gonna undo, and then we have the elevate. This is basically for elevating it on the 3D. So for example, if we elevate this by, currently it's on 0. If you look at here on the info box, the bottom is on 0, so you want to elevate it to maybe 500, or maybe set it to our window level, which is 2.5. I'm 2.1, sorry, 2.1. And then we can either set the home story for elevation. So the home story for elevation will be window level. So let's hit OK. So it says, as a result of the last operation, elements have been created and or have changed their position or currently unseen story. Because now at this level you can't see this wall because it's now on the upper level. So it says it's going to disappear here. So if you hit continue, it's going to disappear. You can only see it when you go to, or when you open the window level like that. And then if you check on 3D, it's been elevated now. So that's the point. Okay. Another important feature for the selection for elements is the snapping. So if you go to the view, we have different types of snapping here. Element snap, the shortcut is Alt E, surface snap, snap guides, snap points, which is basically the midpoints. Then we have snap points option. So we have between nodes or between points, it's active, so we can select the center or the middle of the element. For example, if you hover your cursor here, it will indicate the midpoint because that snap point is active. So if you go back and view, if you go back to view and then snap points options, and then if you uncheck this, so you won't see. Oh, there we go, it's still there. I thought it to be, because the snap point is active. So if you say inactive, it won't show you the center point or midpoint of this element. So if you activate it, it will give you that. Okay, as we go back, we have snap guides. Like for example, if you want to draw an element, for example, let's activate a wall tool again, or maybe a different tool. Let's use a slab. So for example, you want to draw this slab at a certain position of this wall. For example, maybe in between this point and then the center point of this element. So I'm gonna hover the cursor here I'll put the cursor on the point or on the corner. If let's go back. So we need to have the snap guides active, right? If you put your cursor here, it will circle that element or that point, right? And then I can, drag or key in a certain distance from the point, because I want it to be on the center, right? That means, because this is 6 meters, so the center point is 3 meters, so this would be 1.5. So I'm gonna key in 1.5 and then hit enter. So this is where I'll start the placement of this wall, of this slab, and then I'm using the geometry method of a rectangle. So I'm gonna place this slab using a box or a rectangular method, and then let's key in the dimension of this rectangle. So on the horizontal length is going to be, because I want it to be aligned with this point, I can just hover a cursor again on this point and it will circle it. Then I can, this is because of the snap guide, what I'm doing here. And then going up, I'm going to key in the dimension 2, which is going to be I'm going to say agree on the let me say make it 2 meters. So to make it 2 meters, so then I need to access that measurement. So let's say 4.5, right? Then 2 meters, like that. Perfect. That's basically how you can utilize the snap guides. The snap on surface, for example, if you go to 3D, if it's active, you see it gives me the surface. It changes accordingly to the surface. So this is horizontal plane, this is vertical plane, this is at an angle. So if I orbit, so I didn't introduce you to orbit. You can orbit by clicking on this point. The orbit is here, or you just hit O in your keyboard. Just O in your keyboard, like that. You can just orbit by clicking and hold your mouse. Yes, I can select this plane like that by the use of surface snap. And then we have element snap, whereby elements, for example, I'm gonna move this element by using the move on the pad palette by clicking. So if I had to move this along to this element, it will snap. It has to snap. It has to snap. Yes, it has to snap. I can snap these points of the walls like that, even on the center point or on the, yes. That's basically how the element snap works. Okay. Let's look at how to group elements right in ArchiCAD. Let me just bring this down here. You have to select all the elements, and to select all the elements, it's either you use the quick selection or you use the partial selection element, like drawing a rectangle to cut across elements like that to select them all, or you use quick selection. But quick selection this time around, because you are selecting multiple elements, you have to hold shift to continuously select other elements like that. And then to group elements, you can go to edit, or let's go to edit, then groups, and then you can group. The shortcut is Control G to group. And then we have this auto group, whereby if you multiply elements, for example, they are going to be auto grouped. Okay, and let's just hit on group to see that. To see if elements are grouped, you'd see the points changes to this kind of I don't know what's color. It will changes the points, unlike when it's ungrouped. When it's ungrouped, for example, let's just draw a wall here. The points will be black. If you select, the points will be black. But if you look at this one, it's gray. It's pale. I don't know what color is this. Yes. That's basically the difference between a grouped elements and then ungrouped elements. So, for example, if you want to access the group now, you want to access elements within the group, you'll have to come here and activate suspend groups. So if you activate this, you can select separately or these individual elements without, affecting the group. If you uncheck, it will go back to the grouping. So that's how it works. And then also there's a locking of an element. If you want to lock element so that it won't be tampered with. So for example, for whatever reason, maybe you are working on the same project with multiple guys are working on the same project, but there's some element that are not supposed to be touched or moved or tempered or edited, so you can just lock them. You can select element, then go to edit, under locking you can lock, or you can right click. I don't know, we have lock here. Oh, it's just you can right click and then go to layers, then lock the layer. So if you go here and locking and then lock the element, so you see the points are grayed out. That means the element is been locked. You can't move this element, or you can't edit the element. Okay, so that's basically. So if you go to its settings, it won't give you the OK button to affect the element by the changes you want to make here. So that's the difference between locked and unlocked elements. Alright, the wall tool is one of the mostly used wall tool to assemble a project. I can't remember a project without walls, right? So it's very, very important to have a basic, fundamental understanding on how the tool works. For example, if you activate the tool, which is the wall, like I said, from the info box, you'll be given all the parameters, not all, if not, but the summary of the wall settings or parameters settings. So what we have here, the first part is the layer section, where you can change its layer, but by default ArchiCAD assign layers to elements accordingly as you place them within your file. So currently the wall on this template, the layer is a structural bearing. So if it's a structural bearing wall, it has to be here. But if you are doing maybe an internal partition wall, you have to change the layer to maybe a finished wall or something of that. So to place a wall, we have different geometry methods to place a wall. So we have the first one here, which is the chained geometry. It has a different method. It has a single wall. We have multiple walls placement, and then we have rectangle and rotated rectangle. From the single plane wall or single line wall, to be precise, is let me activate it, is to use 2 points. Let me put this thing aside. Is to use 2 points, for example, from point A to point B. That's the clicking 2 points in order for you to place a single line wall. To place a multiple line wall using a chained method, whereby you can just specify multiple points like that, and then close. Okay, and then we have the third part, which is the rectangle, where you just draw 2 diagonally opposite points, for example from here, and then diagonally draw another point. Mind you, bear in mind that all these actions are also interlinked with or intertwined with the dimension tracker, where you can key in the dimension. In this case, we have dimension 1 and dimension 2, which is basically the width and then the length, right? You can also specify just by clicking or typing in your keyboard your length, for example, which is dimension 1, let's say 3.5, and then to access dimension 2, you use the downward arrow key in your keyboard, and then this one will be 2 meters. From here, you hit enter to apply. Perfect. And then we move on to the rotated element. So that dimension tracker, it's also applicable to the first 2 methods we've placed. For example, if we're going with a single line wall, for example, you can key in the distance of that line to be 1.8, for example, and then hit enter to be placed. So just like the single line, for the chained link, you would continuously placing some or entering some distances within your element. Let's move on to the rotated rectangle. So this one, it's also interesting. You specify the first point, then the rotation, the angle. For example, I want 45 degrees rotation, then you can specify the distance of that, which is going to be, in this case, 2.5. Perfect. So from here, what we have is the structure of your wall. What is the structure of your wall? Basically, that's the makeup of your wall. How do you want your wall to be represented? Okay, that 2 ways of doing that. So we have, let's select this one, and I'm gonna select just one. Okay, so if you go here under the structure, and but before we do the structure, I would want us to do the reference line location. Reference line location is this blue line. It's I think most of the tools here have this line because it indicates the core, the reference line of the element. So mostly it's in blue color like that, and you can decide where the direction of this to be. You can have it on the center, you can have it on the outside, depending. So this is very, very important because this is key to the positioning and the dimensioning of your spaces. You have to know that. So if it's on the outside, it reduces that, and then also it will determine the placing and the method as well. So if you're using continuous method, if you draw from clockwise or anti-clockwise, the placement of the element of the reference line would differ. As you can see here, in this case, we have the finish of our wall to the outside. Here we have them in the inside. Why? Because if we drew this one, the reference line is in inside, and then we went to the right placing this, or clockwise placing this. So yeah, these are little nuances in placement and reference line location in ArchiCAD. You got to be I think you can learn them by doing. You would understand it much better as you move on with the working in ArchiCAD. Okay, so with terms of the structure, so that the structure, either we have three types of the structure of your wall. We have the basic structure, where you have just two lines of your wall, solid and with material. For example, if you can change this to a brick like that. So this is basically a basic structure of your element. And then we have the composite. The composite now it determines the precision of your element representation. If you want to add more detail to your element, so for example, you will have default composites that are available within this template. You can create your own composite. For example, let's quickly assemble a composite for a brick wall that has two or finish on both sides, right? So I'm gonna go to the options menu. Remember, we are going back to our element attributes, the one we've been doing. So I'm going to open the composites, right? And then here, what we need to do is to open or to create a new composite. Let's hit here on create new. Okay, so we're not going to duplicate. You can reuse what's available there, but in this case we're gonna create a new composite. I'm gonna call it 250 let's use small caps, wall, let's say finish both sides, right? And then hit OK. There we have our wall composite. Currently we have just by default ArchiCAD will give you just one skin under the skin and the line structure. So what we have here, we need to add a series of, because we have three, we have a plaster on both sides. We're going to have three skins, right? I'm going to insert and then insert so that we can have three. So this one will be the core, and then this will be the finish. So the finish, I'm going to make it 15, and then from the bottom is going to be also 15 millimeters. So here, this is the total thickness value. Currently is 130 because our brickwork is 100, but we said it's 250. So that means we need to have this to be 120. Oh, sorry, 220. Sorry, this should be 220 to have our wall 250. Currently the materials are the same, it's just the brick. So we need to change this by clicking on this arrow and access other materials. So let's search for plaster there. You'd see we have a plaster lime, and go with the lime, and I'm gonna change also this one to be plaster lime as well. Basically we've created a composite. This is the preview of both graphically and physically. So this is how it looks on the plans, on the 2D plans and sections. This is how it looks in 3D. So we need now to set up the line types. Currently all the lines for these elements are solid lines, right, which is ideal for this situation. What else we need to do is the weight of these lines. Currently they are just one weight, remember. And the interesting thing is when you select this element, it indicates where it is located on the preview here. Okay, so what we've selected is the outside top line, which is this one. We can change it weight to be for a, let me use a gray color for general drafting, for an example, and do the same to this one, which is 101. I'm gonna type 102 because I can reference with this one, and then also this one is going to be 102. Let's make these two the same. And then for the brickwork, because I want them to be thick, I'm going to use a wall line for both this, like that. It's going to be pen 7 for all. You can even see the difference between this. In ArchiCAD, this is how the weight of the line or the pen is being represented. If you look at it, has the 2 dots, and then the second dot is always thick. If it's a thick wall, if it's a lighter pen, it would be like just a line like that. It's not that thick. So this is the difference. It shows graphically how thick or how the value of that weight. You can tell just by the look of things how your graphic will look. So from here I can hit OK. But before you do, you have to decide which tool you are going to use this composite. So I'm gonna use it with a wall tool, and then deselect these ones and then hit OK. So I can select all this by specifying from the left and then cuts everything across. Then let's change this to our newly created, under structure, our newly created 250 wall finish. So it will give us that. So we've seen how we've set the skins. We now set the line types, the hatch, even the weight of this element. So in order for you to see the weight graphically or visually here on the screen, you can right click and then say true line weight. So you could see now the line weight of these things. If you change the scale to 1:50 or maybe 1:20, you could see the difference between this weight and the value of your elements as you move forward. So yeah, that's basically that when it comes to an element, a wall element. So from here you can also access a lot of parameters from the settings dialog by selecting the element and then click on the settings dialog. So here the geometry and positioning section is where you key in. So currently this is at window level. We want this to be at the ground floor. It should start from the floor plan finish like that, and then the top link will be the wall plate like that. So it runs across these two levels. So currently the structure is a composite, like we've set it up. And then we have also the geometry here. We can also have this trapezoid kind of a wall, or this polygonal of a wall. You can make it slant if you want to. You can make it tapered or double slanted like that. So yeah, that's basically that. And then we can also override the surfaces, but currently the surfaces are dependent from the composites, which is being assembled using building materials. The building materials also has surfaces, so it depends. If you want to override for whatever reason, you can override here, but in this case we want them to be as for how it's been assembled from the composite. Now, so if I go to 3D and I don't see those elements, because previously we've used to marquee and show only the marqueed portion in 3D. In order for you to return back all the elements is to right click and then say show all elements, or Control F5 in your keyboard. So if you click that, it will give you all the elements we've been placing currently. So you could see here the surfaces and the building materials depends on the composite. But if you want, you can override this. Like I said, let's select that and then open the settings, and then we can easily override this and then lock or link all the surfaces to be the same surface. Maybe change this to a white, stucco white finish, like that. That will affect everything for whatever reason, but I mainly use the composite surfaces to represent the elements, like that. Let me know in the comment section so far what you think about this video. I would love to hear from you and really contribute from that. I'll be responding to each and every comments in the section. Let's list them all there. Let's look at the slab tool. If you activate the slab tool, it also gives you the layer where it's been assigned under structural bearing, because there's a structural bearing element. You can change it if you are using this as a finish or as a ceiling, because you can use the slab out of context by representing different elements, but you have to change the layer to represent that particular purpose or function you are using it for. And then it gives you the same kind of a structure in terms of the geometry method. We have the polygonal, where you specify or click multiple points to place your slab, and then we have a rectangle and rotated rectangle. And we also have the reference plane location, either at the top of your slab or bottom, or if it's a composite, it has to be maybe the top, the core top. For example, if it's just a basic, it will be just top or bottom. But if it's a composite, right, it's top finish, bottom finish, core, and then top core, and then bottom core. So that's basically how it works. And then the structure also is either basic or composite. Then we have list of the composite by default that comes with this template. And then under the floor plan section also is the the viewing of the elements graphically for sections and floor plans. It needs to be linked to a story. For example, this one will be linked to a floor plan, and we have the offset from the origin point. For example, what is the offset from the floor plan finish? It should be sitting on 0. That's what it represents here. And then you can slant or slab the edge or have it straight like that with a certain angle. We have the surfaces just like that, but these are the parameters briefly assembled, but you can access all the parameters by clicking on the view settings, like I said, but on the slab settings or dialog settings, like I said. So the geometry and positioning is mainly in most of the tools here. It will have this section because it's just about the positioning and the geometry of that. So this gives you kind of different tools, unlike on the wall tool. But you could see we've discussed about slanting the edge, stuff like that. The graphic, the uncut lines, the line types is solid. Those are hidden, that are uncut on hidden line. We have a cover fill. We can either override or we leave it how it is, and then we can override the model, the surfaces as well. So let's click OK or cancel that. So just to click, I'm gonna use the rectangle method just to place that. So I'm gonna click there, and then diagonally at the opposite, let's key in the dimensions. I'm going to say it's going to be 3 meters by 3.5. Then hit enter. It says as a result of the last operation, elements have been created, blah blah blah, because currently we are at the window level view, but we've assigned our slab to be the home story, to be the floor plan and the floor plan the floor finish view, which is this one. So it's going to be hidden here. The only view to access it is going to be on the plane. I'm going to hit continue and then go back to the floor plane to access my slab. Let's cancel the command of a slab by clicking on the arrow tool or hit escape in your keyboard. So I can select this element and I can manipulate the geometry by clicking on these points. So on the pad palette, we have a series of commands there that are basically pretty much, most are the same with the other tools, but we have specifically for the wall, for the slabs, which is to offset all edges like that. And then we have where we want to add another polygon, maybe we want to introduce another kink of a slab like that, or we can subtract this like that. If you click on, you can also elevate, you can multiply, you can rotate like we did with the wall like that. But the one that is interesting again is to, if you select on the curve or on the edge, it gives you a different commands. We have this one for insert a new point. You can insert a new point here, or maybe insert it maybe insert it and then move it. You can insert it and then move it to create this kind of a geometry. If we go back again by clicking on the edge, you can now convert this to a curve like that, or you can, there are two ways of doing a curve. There's this one, and then there's this one that uses it uses segment, okay, like that. And then we have the extend neighbor edge. You can extend the neighbor edge like that. It's very interesting. Then what else again? This is the custom edge. If you want to slant it with an edge, I think this is it does the same result with the edge angle like that. Perfect. And then we also have similar structure like a composite. So because we created a composite for a wall, I would like you to create a composite for this slab, and just to give you an exercise to work with. Let's look at the column tool. The column tool, let's activate the tool. It's also have a layer. It has a settings dialog and the geometry method on the info box, and the structure as well, and floor plan section part, and pretty much different sets of parameters for the wall. I mean for the beam. I mean for the column. Sorry, we have the cross section size of our column, the reference axis of the core. We can slant it or we can have it straight. Yeah, basically that. So if you go back to, let's open its settings dialog. So like I said, the positioning is always there, and we want to, the home story will be the floor plan 0 level, and we can slant it if you want by an angle, maybe let's say 80 to slant. This is the preview. And what else again? We can have the end cuts reference. We can have it plumb, we can have it custom angle, maybe make it 80 to plumb it, or maybe 60. Let's see, 60. Yes, something like that. We can have it both at the top or the bottom depending on the design. You can change the axis rotation. Maybe you want it to be 60, it will tilt like that. So yeah, that's basically it. Yeah, and then the thickness, I mean, so the sizes of the cross section, maybe change it to 600. You can link them to change all once or L at once. Then the under segment part, we have the different section here. We have the structure, and then we have where we can change the material, maybe to concrete like that, and then we can override this surface by using something different, and so forth. Then the floor plan section is the graphic representation of it in 2D, both in your sections and your floor plans. That's basically setup of your column. Other tools are advanced, and I don't want to introduce them at this level because you'd end up confusing and add more, which is going to be unnecessary. Okay, so let's hit OK, and to place it, we have the geometry method of placement. We can simple place by clicking on the element, or we can use this one. Uses one point by clicking and then it will place like this. It's been placed because it's rotated and angled. It will show it like this. And then we have this geometry method of 2 clicks like that, and then you can click like that. I think this will be pretty much ideal on the 3D placement. For example, if we place it on 3D, maybe like something like that. This goes all the way, and you can select it and change the height instead of linking it to the window level. You can say not linked and then change it to maybe 3 meters height, stuff like that. Let's go back to story settings, and then here under the column, because we have under the top link, we have this value that makes it go all the way. It has to be on 0 so that it's been linked to window story level. So if you go to the segment, you'd see its height here, it's 2.1. okay, so if you hit OK, it will be like that. So there's for placement, for example, if you place, you use this what you call the element snap or the surface snap. Make sure it's active so that you can snap elements in. Mostly you would have your column placed on top of a slab or on top of another element, so it's always ideal to have your element snap active so that you can just place. And then I normally use the simple, which is 1 click to place your columns like that. So this one is rotated. Maybe you want to rotate it, you can click first the position and then rotate like that. And then this is for the angle, for the slanting, you specify the position first, and then for the slanting you can have it like that, then you slant it again like that. Okay, so yeah, that's basically it in terms of the column. To recap for what we've covered so far, let's have an exercise, a hands-on exercise. The objective is to model a simple one-room structure that is going to be around 4 meters wide by 3.5 with 200 millimeters wall thickness, and we're going to add a 150 millimeters thick slab at story level 0, which is our floor plan floor finished level. And then we're going to place 1 door and 2 windows with correct dimensions. We're going to use a measure tool to check the room sizes. Save view as exercise 1 room model. So let's do that. I'm going to start by activating the wall tool, right? Let's activate the wall tool, and with the use of geometry method, let's change it to the rectangle, and we are going to make this by clicking on the one for the first point and diagonally against or across the first point. Let's key in the dimensions, which is going to be 3500 hit the downwards arrow in the keyboard to access the dimension 2 parameter. That is going to be 4,000, which is 4 meters. And then hit enter. We have this. It's always advisable to start your project around this point. So I'm going to select all this and then Control D to drag, or just go here and then activate drag, or you can just click on the points, and on your pet palette you can activate drag like that and position it here from this origin point. It's very, very critical to have your project placed here within also your source markers of elevation, so that all this been captured on your elevation view. Okay, so from here let's place a 150 millimeters thick slab on this level. So I'm going to activate the slab tool. Then by the use of rectangle geometry, let's change the structure to basic and make sure the material is concrete. Then scroll down with your wheel on the info box. If you scroll down like this, your wheel mouse, it will give you other parameters. For I'm interested in the thickness of the slab. Make it 150, and then the base offset is going to be 0, and we are going to place it by picking one of these points inside and place it to the bottom of your correct. So it says the result of this operation because it's been linked to the site. Let's cancel this and change this to floor plan, because we want it to be linked on this current view, so that if you place it like that and then dim, it's been placed. So if you check it on 3D and fit in the windows, this is what we have. Okay, so we are going to, it will depend also on the, if you look at this, it will depend also on how you want the floor finish to be on the bottom of your slab or the top of your slab. So if you select this and then under reference plane, you can change it like that. Okay, and then let's go back to our ground and place a door and 2 windows. So I'm going to activate a door tool here in ArchiCAD. Let's open the settings dialog. In ArchiCAD we have a default library for your doors. So if you click on the folders here, we have doors, and we have different sets of doors here. I would want the hinge door. Maybe let's go with this arch door with 2 side lights and a transom. Let's click on it, and this, the preview and positioning, we have the width of the door including the side lights, then the height, which is 2.5, then the offset from the story is going to be 100. I want it to be at 0 for now, and the reveal, which is the how the position of the along with the thickness of the wall, I'm gonna leave it as it is. And then we go here under hinged door settings. Here we have the door leaf settings. We can change it to something different from what's available here on the library. You can just use style 4. Also, you can change the preview to an elevation so that you can see all these changes on your elevation like that, or on 3D if you want, because they will be activated like that. And then the handle also needs to be changed, and then we can move on to the next page like this. These are all the parameters of your door like that. The transom also, the grid, we can change the grid to something different, not custom. Let's go for HVs. The side hang, the door will be a side hang, right? And then I'd want the door to be on 3D to be opening maybe 90 degrees or maybe 60 degrees if you want, so that it can open like that. Okay, so let's hit OK, then place our door here. So doors are placed on walls, right? So you need to hover above your wall. This graphically it will represent the section of your door, or the path of your door, for example. So you have this star that is to show the opening direction or side of your door. So I want them to be in the inside like this, and turn it like that. So if you check on 3D, this is what we have placed. So the offset, we made it 0, but we want it to be on the top of our slab. So I'm gonna come here under seal height and head height and make it 100. So the slab is 150, make it 150 like that. Okay, so because our walls run from the floor level to window level, so we need to make all the walls. To select all the walls in 3D like this, you can activate the wall tool and then hit Ctrl A in your keyboard, and then change the linked stories height to be at the wall plate. Perfect. Okay, let's move on to the windows. It's always ideal to do it on to place elements on the floor plan, and activate the window. Go to its settings in ArchiCAD. Also, just like the doors, we have different types of windows that comes with this template. So I'm going to go to the folder and pick this double door window. Then you can either choose to see it on the preview on 3D, and you can set the opening type. The other one it's top hang, the other one it's side mirror. Then if you move on, these are different parameters. You can set the frame width, and you can make it uniform like that, which is 50 all around. And this is the sash styles. It says no grid, but if you can put a grid and set numbers of grid vertically and horizontally depending on your design. So you can also have the grid inside or outside or throughout depending on your design as well. So this is the handle. You can include your handle to your windows, and you can decide to open the sash with 60 like that, 70, maybe 20 is fine, something like that. And then let's hit OK. And then we also have the materials. To change the materials, let's click on this arrow. It will give you all these pages, all the parameters of your windows, similarly to doors as well. If you click on this window, it will give you everything. So let's go to the model attributes, and we want to change the frame and sash material. We can make it uniform, so that we just changed one. If we change one to, let me go for metal, aluminum, right? It will change all this except the glass. And then I hit OK. Let's place this window just like the door. You need to choose the side of your window position. This time is going to be on the inside, and then opens to the outside, right? So if you check on 3D, this is what we have. Right. Okay. From here, we're gonna save this project. Let's go to File, Save As, and I'm gonna save it on the desktop. Let's choose the location. I'm going to save it as exercise. Oh, sorry about that. Exercise 1-1 room model, then hit save. The format will be ArchiCAD Solo Project, which is abbreviation of PLN. All right, then hit save. Okay, up until next time, I'll see you in the next video, but don't forget to subscribe and share this video if you think it's beneficial to the other people, and also await for the next session. We're gonna continue and then builds up as we go along with the sessions. So this is session 1. We'll be looking at session 2 soon, and it's going to be fun. Thank you for your time, and make sure to list or put all the comments in the comment section. I will try to address all the comments that are coming in. Thank you once again. Bye bye.